Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
Hello and welcome back to the All In Podcast. It has been a long time since our last episode, but we are here to talk about the end of the regular season of LCS Summer 2024. Ended with a bang. Ended with some of our favorite teams sitting at the top there. And yeah, I'm glad to be back. How are you, Kevin? Are you glad to be back? What's going on with you?
Yeah, so I took like 3 weeks off because I was in China on a business trip and also vacation, had a really good time. So I'm back and rejuvenated, and honestly, I'm doing really well. I was watching the games while I was in China,
Yeah.
and it's been a good time to be a Liquid fan. So
Oh yeah. Wait, did you get to play solo queue in China or?
no, I do
Okay.
have an account there, but I was
Yeah.
so busy and it was so hot. Like I didn't want to put on. So it's like 100 up to 105 degrees
Oh
outside. I
yeah.
was like, do I really want to put on headphones
Yeah.
after being outside all day? It's just kind of gross. But I do own an account there. I've played solo queue there before. It's really fun.
Okay,
I played
cool.
on Ionia 1 before in like season 4 and 3.
That's awesome.
And yeah, quick fact because I didn't do it this trip, but from the other times I went, back then people would just build in lane. If you beat them, they would build Medjai so they could come back faster.
Yeah.
Like I was remember like looking like what the hell are they doing? And the logic was just like, yeah, if I get a kill, I'm like it's already doomed if I'm 0-2 early game. So if I get a kill, might as well, rebound immediately. I'm like, I think that's like a gambler's mentality, but okay.
I've actually heard that before.
Really? You have?
I've seen that before. Yeah, there was a
Oh.
guy who plays mid lane, and whenever he would play Kassadin and fall behind and the team was doomed, he would buy a Medjai's and be like, I just need a 1v9 one team fight as Kassadin, and I come out of that fight with a bunch of stacks. All of a sudden the game went from completely doomed to like winnable. So yeah, I mean, some people think like
There's
that.
some reasoning in it, I guess, because there are situations it really is just doomed. So, like, at that
Yeah.
point, what difference does it make to take a risk? Because
Yeah.
in solo queue, people are always going to throw.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I can see it.
Maybe that guy was ahead of his time. Well, not the guy, the meta. That was just how people played on that server, and I was very confused.
Yeah, I think it's just a mentality playstyle thing too, right? Like if you're playing Kassadin, it makes sense. If you're playing Orianna, doesn't really make sense, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, or like Silas, it makes sense, or Kali or something. Yeah. All right. Well, that's a very interesting little tidbit. We have so much to talk about. We have LCS to talk about, of course. But we also have like just stuff around the world that like has happened that we haven't really talked about that much. I want to talk about a topic that's already been covered by many other podcasts before, but we haven't talked about it, and that is Faker. So Faker, he did have an unfortunate sportsmanship moment. I was actually talking to the league dad about this, and his immediate take of here, I'll say what it is. So Faker, after a match against Genji, he had a couple unfortunate throws in the series, and even though it was close, I think Faker took it really harshly that he was the one who kind of made some big mistakes that caused the game to be thrown, and he like aggressively was hitting his head against the wall and stuff out of frustration, and it just goes to show that he's still a person. He's very stressed, and everything can affect him very deeply. League Dad's take was he thought like that's why he's the GOAT, because he takes things so seriously and that affects him that much, and like he's the type of person to not let that kind of stuff like be okay. It's not okay in his mind. But yeah, what are some of your thoughts on that?
I thought it was well. One, I'm very concerned for him considering he is the GOAT and he's like damaging his head. Like it's really concerning. Like there was some stuff I saw online like, oh, maybe the walls aren't too heavy, like too hard, but I'm like, you're hitting your head against an object. Like it's just not good. I do agree that is probably the mindset of like the best, right? You are just so good and you're so driven. Like how does he keep finding the will to grind when he's done everything there can be? He's as rich as that you can be, and he, has won 4 championships, including one recently, right? All the other ones were within a small period of time. So, some people who didn't watch his ascent might be like, oh, things were easier back then. They were not necessarily easier, right?
Yeah.
So I think that it definitely is the makings of why he's so good. But I would also say like it's that personally to me was like, yes, this is why he's the GOAT, but this is really unhealthy. Like,
Yeah.
I would be really concerned because he's already injured himself the split before. Like,
Yeah, with his wrist.
We're like, you can sit one split out if it means you can last longer, and so I'm really concerned. And once again, he's also the brain for the other 4 players, so like that's some valuable real estate he's sitting. So that's my take. I said a lot, but I feel bad for him, but I also think that's like really deeply concerning. Like he basically feels like it's all him. And to be fair, those are huge throws.
And it kind of is all him in a way a lot of the time, right? But definitely that sentiment at the end where you said like that's valuable real estate. That was my immediate reaction was, yo, you got to protect those brain cells, buddy. Like those are all very important. Like those are the GOAT brain cells. So I don't want him to get like a concussion or like damage anything. Like I'm like the type of guy that's like, you know, keep Faker, give him like the best oxygen, the best food, the best sleep, make sure he's healthy. Got to protect all those brain cells. Um, yeah, I do think it's just a product of how business is done in the modern day, and that if Faker wants to take a break for his longevity, he's gonna do it only for himself, right? Because the company and like the esports scene in general is very much what can you do for me now? It's not what can you do for me tomorrow or next year. It's what can you do for me now, right? So Faker, he's got contracts, he's got streaming deals, he's got sponsorship deals that all need him now. They need him to play now. They need him to succeed now. They need him to do well. T1 as an organization, as a company, is built like every other esports org or most companies in general, in that they need success now or they won't have money, right? So like it's very stressful for Faker. I think he knows that he could take a year off, come back, and still be the best, and probably be a lot better. But how much is he missing in that year? How much pressure is that going to put on him and the people around him and stuff like that? And right, like the behind the scenes staff of T1 are not going to want him to take a break because their careers depend on him playing now and succeeding now. Like their minds are not at the longevity of like is Faker going to be playing in 5 years? Like as fans, as the audience that doesn't have to pay Faker's checks are all like we want him to play for 5 to 10 years, right? We want him to, so take a break now so you can keep going, protect yourself. That's not how business works, unfortunately. So um, I do want him to take a break. I do want him to chill out. I don't care if he doesn't win Worlds this year or next year. I just want him to play forever, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then the last thing I'll say on my part, at least, is that like I think that it's also a product of his team not really being willing to do it. In the sense, like you mentioned it, so I want to really emphasize like his team has money, and that means Comcast owns T1, or at least is a major stakeholder, right?
Really? Hey, that's okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. I didn't know that.
Is from Comcast. It's an exact.
Oh.
That's why they're not SKT T1 anymore, because SKT is still a sponsor, but Comcast is another major sponsor. So you couldn't have the title sponsor for the Comcast partially owned
I'm
team.
Googling this right now.
Yeah.
Oh my god, you're right. You're not lying to me. Oh
no,
my god.
I didn't make this shit up. I know I sound very convincing all the time.
So no, that's okay. Okay, interesting. Okay, we're learning stuff today. Yeah. Well, that's pretty much yeah.
They can afford it. It's just that like the thing is, okay, guys, what is let's say Faker? I don't know. He went to NA. Okay, what would T1 actually be worth? Like, yes, it has legacy, but who's really a fan of anyone on that team not named Carrier?
Yeah, I mean, I would say all the players on T1 have a fan base, but it's just pales in comparison to like most of the top players, right? Of like Faker, Chovy, maybe Showmaker, stuff like that.
I would even go as far as to say it's kind of like, yeah, they have a fan base, but it's because their big brother, is really cool and super rich and super smart, and so everyone's a fan of. Yeah, they're friends with you, but I don't know, man.
I don't know. I think Owner has a good fan base because he's like ripped, right? He has like the e-girls. He's got like the Giga Chad look, so you could have a fan base for sure.
Sort of a silly, but I mean, this is like okay, so it's a bad example for other reasons. But my point is like, yeah, you can be ripped, but that's a dime a dozen. I still feel like.
Okay, well, I don't know where this was going, but owner's ripped. That's all I wanted to say. He's buff. He's Giga Chad.
we got the key things in there.
All right, let's move on. Okay, we're gonna talk a bit more international news. So I wanted to talk about EU a little bit. So I don't know if you've heard that G2 once again won Summer Split. They're moving in. We're in the season finals or finale or whatever for LEC right now. But big controversy, I think, for LEC is that the region as a whole supposedly sucks because G2 is still winning, but they look bad, right? G2 is winning. I think when you look at summer finals, it was like they won against BDS and Fnatic, and in 5 out of the 6 games they won, they were behind by like more than like a couple thousand at 15 minutes or something. It was like some really intense statistics.
10 or 4-6-8. It was like some hilariously bad.
Yeah.
Trajectory.
Like and yeah. The last game that they so you're referencing the finals against Fnatic. It was a 3-0 for G2. G2 was behind 4K in game 1, 8K in game 2, and 10K in game 3, and G2 won all of them. So a lot of people are saying that the region is doomed, right? G2 is playing really badly. Their early game sucks, but because the other teams are so much worse than G2, especially at mid to late game macro, that G2 is still the best team in Europe, and it's kind of like a bad sign for the region. What's your take on that? What are your ideas in there?
So I used to think back when EWC happened, the Esports World Cup happened. I was like watching how good Lake was playing, and I was like, maybe Copium, but I think that we might be better, right?
Yeah. NA is
we
better.
We never saw the matchup, right? We definitely looked better than G2, but we didn't do the head-to-head because Liquid historically before their big pop-off, right, hadn't really been able to beat G2 specifically. And, sometimes you have your matchup demons. And so I was like, okay, it's a little Copium, but I think we're better. Then I've been watching, but I'm like, yeah, we don't know how the matchup goes. But this team is just a shell of their former self. Like, they cannot play League of Legends currently. Like, let's not beat around the bush. They are a complete joke. And again, it's all relative. They're not actually bad per se, but they're not in the same conversation anymore. Like, that's the fact, right? They're not playing coordinated. I watched the whole APA crackdown, or I think they call it the Sackdown. There's a podcast that Dom and Yamato Cannon do. And
yes,
they got a 2-hour interview with APA, and it was really insightful. And like he was basically saying like it just didn't feel like they have the pressure that they used to have, and like their whole like they just all regressed. Like they're bad at laning. They used to be like kings of team fighting, really creative. But there's no pressure. Even Caps is just fine. So I kind of agree with that. I mean, obviously I'm biased because as a Liquid fan, I would prone to agree with this person anyways. But
okay.
I just felt like it's doomed if you're a one-team region and your one team isn't even good at team fights.
Right. Yeah. I mean, definitely. We'll have to see how season finale comes down because there's still time for teams. But they did lose a series to Mad Lions, right? MDK. G2. So G2 is definitely struggling this second half of the year because it seemed like they were doing so well at MSI, right? At MSI, they were peaking. They nearly beat T1 like twice almost, right? And then and they beat Top Esports and stuff like that. So yeah, it's crazy how fast G2 has really turned from being really, really good at MSI to just being bad ever since then. I would say when it comes to like let's look at like NA, right? NA has had a lot of years where it's a one-team region, right? A lot of Team Liquid years have been one-team regions where it's pretty much just Doublelift running the entire show. I have felt in those times where one-team regions are really hard, I think, for those teams to like stay on top without someone pushing them, right? I do think like Fnatic is not like a bad team. They're not absolutely awful. But something that they struggle to do is I think Fnatic's a really good team except when it matters, right? I feel like Fnatic, every time they've showed up against TL, I don't think they're playing at 100% their best, right? Like they are kind of playing kind of bad. Like especially like I gotta say, especially Noah. Like Noah is just a fucking inter on the international stage. He's an inter in finals. So I think it's really hard for G2 to stay on top of their game when the team that's supposed to be pushing them can't actually like play well enough, right? Fnatic
Mm.
beats G2 when it doesn't matter, right? It happened in this summer finals or in this summer split where Fnatic beat G2, and then when they went to the real finals, Fnatic choked their brains off. And I just think that that's a really big problem for Fnatic, obviously, but also for the region. And it's like it's hard for like you can't like G2 can't blame Fnatic for being bad, right? You can't do that. But from an outsider looking in, like
Yeah, no, you're right. It
it's
sounds funny,
hard
but
it's hard to be pushed, right? It's like G2 shows up to the finals and it's like, hey, if Fnatic wasn't choking, then G2 would have lost to Fnatic, clearly, and G2 would have to improve and be better and, fix all their issues, but they get away with murder because their best sparring partners can't actually play at their best. And so I think it just sucks for LEC as a whole. I mean, it's great for NA in comparison, but like I don't know, it was kind of like lame watching that finals, right? Like I wanted to see a good finals, and instead it was
yeah, we're all
very
here to
depressing.
watch good league, and like
Yeah.
even though we meme on the inferior league, it's not like they're we actually want them to be complete.
I don't want them to be bad. Yeah, I want them to be good enough, just not better than us. And then, and if they're playing an Asian team, I'll root for EU as well to beat an Asian team. But yeah, it does feel like, man, I think the problem is weirdly for G2 is that Fnatic chokes. If Fnatic didn't choke and they would win stuff, then we would just be saying that Fnatic is the best team and that the level of the region has risen because Fnatic is so much better. But instead, we're talking it in the other perspective where it's not Fnatic has risen up to a better level, as G2 has dropped down to a worse level, right? Just the perspective changes so much when Fnatic loses that finals like that. All right, so that's the EU. We talked about Korea. LPL playoffs are going crazy. JDG might not make it to Worlds. They are on a knife's edge, right? They lost to NIP, which is Rookie's team. Just a quick recap of what's happening in China. They're looking pretty good this year, but honestly, between their top teams of like BLG and Top Esports, and I guess Weibo Gaming is considered a top team now. I just don't see them. Yeah, I don't see them beating Gen.G. I cannot see it in their play. I've watched a lot of LPL playoffs so far, and I don't really see it. And I've watched a decent amount of LPL this year, so I think Gen.G is looking real good coming into Worlds. Okay, that's kind of the all-around conversation. Did you have any LPL comments or anything?
Yeah, two things.
Yeah.
So real quick, I wanted to mention you're actually right about the Fnatic conversation. APA literally said he was like, yeah, actually they were kind of doing like dirty things to Team Liquid in the scrims.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't show on stage at all. And I was like, oh wow.
Okay.
Even he's saying that, right? Like they were winning.
Yeah.
And then the thing I will say about LPL is like, I think this is the year LPL wins again.
Really?
What happens every time we're like, LPL's looking kind of shaky, like that EDG win year. The FPX year, not so much.
I predicted EDG. Just saying, I got that one right. So,
oh, you did actually.
I did. I was the only one. I said it before the tournament started. EDG was gonna win.
But yeah, so I was like thinking like, this is generally the mood. Like we have teams that are competent. They're all there. We have like absolute legend. Dom is like rooting for them. There's like some fun stories, but no one's really paid attention to the LPL. The hype has mostly died considering they did 2 tournaments now, 2 internationals where they were okay, right? They were pretty like for their standards, not that good.
Yeah.
But they were still playing.
They lost MSI first time in a while. First time in a long time they lost MSI.
Which, to be fair, is like they usually win it, so it's not really that much of a hit on them for them to lose once. But yes.
I mean, but they won this year, and we're talking about Worlds this year, as the same year as they lost MSI. I just don't see it. I think Gen.G all the way. Gen.G. I'm a Gen.G fan this year. I'm rooting for. This is Chovy's year. He overcame his demons. He beat.
He lost to KT.
He lost. Okay, that's the regular. They lose to KT. Okay, so that's another LCK thing, right? They're almost about to be. Okay, so listen. We gotta break this down a little bit, okay?
It's like so historically accurate.
Gen.G, they had almost a perfect split in spring split. Okay, they went 17-1 or whatever it was. Then the one team they lost to was KT, right? That happened spring split. Okay, pretty troll. That's okay. They went on to win, and then LCK spring, and then they won MSI. Great. They're the best team. And then LCK Summer is coming in, right? They're also undefeated, and they're looking really hot. KT not having a great year. They lose to Bro. Bro is the 10th place team in the league. They beat KT in destructive fashion, and everyone's thinking, okay, this is finally Genji's year to go undefeated. KT's looking really bad. No, KT loses to Bro to get blessed so that they could take down Genji and once again stop their undefeated split. So, yeah, Genji lost to KT. But I don't know why you're bringing this up to say that that's like a bad thing. Like, they won MSI after losing. Like, it's a kiss of it's a blessing. Like,
blessing to lose to the team that got 2-0'd by Bro the week before.
Yes,
Okay.
and then they won MSI. Like the same thing happened in spring, right? And so it's just Genji. So you just have to lose to KT.
The blood sacrifice. I see.
Yeah, sometimes you lose to Genji. Okay, sometimes you lose to Bro. It happens, and then you win Worlds or you win MSI. Okay. So.
Oh, okay. That is a take you could have, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Okay. Let's go to LCS. So, since we haven't really covered the season as a whole that much, we're just going to talk about the recent most hype matches, okay? It's going to be focusing on mostly Team Liquid and C9 and FlyQuest. So, TL versus C9 was probably the best series of the regular season. Only 7 series per team, so not a lot to go on. We can talk about how our feelings of the best of 3 format now that's finally over. But let's talk about this series. TL versus C9 was pretty fun to watch. Happened like what, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and yeah, TL won 2-1. It was close in game 1 and game 3 kind of close, but game 2 was a mega stomp for TL. What were your thoughts on this series?
I would say that this was a series that agree with you on the take of how close it was or not during the series. I think this was a series that's pretty much solidified though that like regardless of like the laning skill of the teams, I think Team Liquid is on another level when it comes to their ability to play the map. I think even in game 1, like APA said it himself afterward, like I was like game 2, he said in chat, like I was trolling and you guys almost lost that. Like he was trolling basically.
He was.
And their map movement and their team coordination was still on such a level that they just kept it close for longer than it needed to be. Like I felt like C9 had times where like, yeah, the early game plan's like a lot better now that Reaper's their coach this split. That's something that I saw for the whole split. It was like much better than split 1. But it was clear that once like you were done with your game plan, I was like, dude, like does JoJo know how to side lane? Do they know how to where to rotate? Do they know how to team fight and coordinate? Thanatos does, like not this match, but like he's done this flash in when all 4 of them are running away. Like
yeah.
You just see a lot of that, right? So they have better pieces. Thanatos is definitely an upgrade, at least in terms of pressure. He still hasn't synced, and I don't know if he will, but he has pluses, and there's exciting aspects to this team. But I honestly thought that even though it was close and it was probably one of the highest level series we've seen in NA, at least in the last year, I felt like Liquid was on another level.
Yeah. Yeah, I could feel that too, especially considering like game 1 was really, really close, and Cloud9 had to like fight tooth and nail to get that win, and then game 2 was a mega stomp for TL, and then game 3 was like still pretty TL favored. It was like, yeah, you caught TL slipping for 1 game in the series, and then they just cleaned it up and got serious, right? I do even think so. Game 1 was the closest one, right, and that was probably the most fun one to watch. I do think like APA was not only giga trolling, he was the reason they lost that game. Cause like it was like back and forth, right? Lots of fights. People would die, team fight, respawn, go back to the objective fight. It was just not nonstop action in the mid game, right? And what actually happened is APA is like a little skirmish and a mid contest was happening at the very end, the last fight, and APA TPs. And he TP's basically in front of C9, and he has to like Valk away, and all of TL dies trying to save APA. Like that's why they lost. Like I honestly think if APA doesn't do that, they just win game 1, and then it would have been a 2-0 actually. So APA did kind of throw that game 1. He knows it. He called it. He played really well for the rest of the series anyways, so nothing to really complain about for him. But just to say that even though Cloud9 did take one game off in the series, and it was close. I do think that it was just an unforced error from Team Liquid. They, they're completely unforced. APA did not have to TP so close to Cloud9. Yeah, so I do like that this this series did show some variety from TL, right? So in game one, right, they have Ivern for which is a champion that fits for Umti and TL very well. But it's like notably like he's not on Maokai or Sejuani duty, right? He's doing Ivern's. It's a slightly different style. It's a supportive enchanter, and I like it a lot for him because I think that's been a main topic of conversation for TL. Is like what is their weakness, and it's right? He has a very one-dimensional play style. He can only play supportive tank champs. So, but the nice thing about that is that style in jungle is evergreen, right? It works whenever, all the time, and it's always useful. So as long as you just have enough champions, right? So if you go into playoffs and you ban Sejuani and Maokai, well, he still has Ivern, right? And then he still has other champions that he can play, right? You see him play Viego, Vi sometimes. So there's some variety, but notably, right, for most of this year, TL has not done the AP junglers. They're not playing Brand or Zyra or Karthus or Lilia really that much at all, right? Every now and then they might try it, but against a lower team. But for the most part, it's been pretty standard for TL. So yeah, that's definitely a takeaway I had from this series. Anything else you want to say?
I would say this series also. I mean, it's hard to say cements, but I think that Umti is a better jungler than Blabber this split. I've seen enough where I think in this again, this is a split where C9's not even like tilted or bad, right? They were undefeated up till the split. But I think that Blabber has, I don't know what it is, because his team is actually quite good all around. And like Vulcan's not even trolling anymore. Like there's a lot of things that are going well, but I don't feel inspired by Blabber. I feel like inspired, if anything's better than Blabber this split too. So maybe it's a conversation between who's better, Umti or Blabber. Umti are inspired when we're talking about All Pro later on, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think Blabber wasn't terrible. He wasn't trolling, but I haven't felt any of that like, holy shit, this is the best jungler we have, right? And he is historically our best jungler. So it was a little odd in that sense.
I do think Blabber kind of trolled this series. In game 2 on the Sejuani, that guy was straight up running it down. He was perma-feeding on the Sejuani. Yeah, he had the most deaths on his team, which, like, you look at that on paper, it makes sense. He's Sejuani on a losing team, in a losing game. Yeah, you're going to have the most deaths. But so much of what Blabber was doing in that game 2 was illegal. It was quite troll. I don't think he did play that well in game 3 on the Sejuani either. So maybe Blabber's protesting. He says, "Don't put me on Sejuani duty anymore. Put me on carries." But yeah, I have not been that impressed with Blabber. I think throughout most of the split, yeah, he's been just solid, good, but not like 1v9. Like this is the best jungler, as you're saying, right?
You know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of the Jungle Bjergsen.
Jungle Bjergsen
in his final splits.
Oh,
we were like, not offensive, top 3 player for sure still, but like, I mean, this isn't the player we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I'm not used to this kind of. It just seems. I also feel like he's just a melee carry type of player, right? Like he can play Kindred, but other than that, like I really associate him with like Olaf, Lee Sin, maybe some melee aggression. And honestly, him on Sejuani and Maokai has always been kind of mid. It's always been like good, like some of the best in LCS, but like nothing that's gonna be like, wow, this is gonna take us to another level, right? Like I do feel like Umti's Maokai is like cracked as hell, right? So
yeah. Like this is like if he picks this against an LCK team, I might have hope.
Yeah, but Blabber on the tank junglers has just always been like good. It's always been reasonable, and I just don't think he has the same amount of like flashiness that you can have on the AP carry junglers. Because he does play a fine brand, right? I'm sure he's picked up Zyra. I don't remember, but I'm sure he's fine at Zyra. But they're just not very flashy. When you see Canyon play Zyra, I'm like, yeah, he's really good at it, and he's probably one of the best at optimizing it. But it's not like, whoa, Zyra play flash. You know what I mean? It's like whatever. You can't really tell how amazing they are from like a surface level, right? Let's see. Anything else I want to talk about? Yeah, I do want to say that JoJo has been quite tame this split too. Much better than I think spring playoffs is when he kind of started playing bad. But he looked a lot better in spring regular season JoJo when he was 1v9ing a lot of his games. There's a lot less 1v9ing this game because his team is better, but I will say JoJo is making a lot more mistakes. He gets caught a lot. He has a lot of overreaches in team fights. Like his Yone was like disgustingly bad. I don't think he landed any ultis in that game, the game 3 against TL. So JoJo is definitely someone that kind of has me a bit worried in that I'm not gonna say he's like past his prime because he's not hasn't been playing very long, but it definitely feels like when JoJo first came into the league in 2022 and in 2023 when he was on EG in that like kind of bad roster, it was so clear how insane JoJo was for those 2 years. This year, I would say spring split regular season, he showed that he was still really insane. But once he came into playoffs and this split for the most part, it's a bit more of that blabber effect where I'm like, I can tell you're really good and you're like solid. You're always going to be like a top 2, top 3 player. Sorry, I'm hiccuping. But there's not that like defining like, oh, JoJo's insane. JoJo's like carrying this lane super hard. Like he's 1v9ing lane, super far ahead in CS, tons of pressure, and then he makes big plays in the team. Like it's just I don't see JoJo like that right now anymore.
Yeah, I think he like it's interesting because I always thought it was like he was playing really well for the region where there wasn't a lot of competition. Like there was a split where Jensen was probably second or third, and it's like, and I have a lot of respect for Jensen, but that version of Jensen was not really putting him to his limit, you know. So I was like, okay, but this split he and I have a theory, but I'll say it quickly. Like he's has APA to play against, or at least scrim against, right? Obviously, they played at the end, and like he just looked, it was disappointing. Like it was, even APA trolls the game one, right? You could tell he was actively like there were brain cells moving. He was trying to do stuff. It was really bad, but he tried, and that's what I know JoJo for. Like his laning phase should be aggressive, and his team fights should be like pretty explosive. His Yone is actually pretty famous. Like he's not the typical NA lol Yone player. Yeah. And I just didn't notice it. I was like worried. I was like, oh, you know, when he gets to late game or mid game, he's gonna do a big play. Team Liquid will throw, and it didn't feel like it, right?
Yeah.
I will say, I think the reason part of it is that this year he suffered is partially because like Liquid got 2 international tournaments and they didn't tilt, and so normally there's an MSI hangover, but I think the hangover is at least partially influenced by the fact that like you got your ass handed to you so hard that you just like lose confidence, right?
Yeah.
And you don't get breaks. But we have a grinding team that also didn't tilt, and I think that is a huge factor in why they're doing relatively well.
Yeah, no, TL's doing great. Yeah, I would say it does feel like Thanatos kind of took over the role of like he's the flashy guy. He's like kind of like the 1v9 guy where he makes like the big play and he also makes the big blunder too. So maybe Blabber and JoJo are they just gave it to Thanatos. They just gave their magic over to him. I don't know. But yeah, yeah, maybe. Let's talk about let's talk a little bit. Let's get FlyQuest in this conversation. They are our third seed, third best team so far. FlyQuest versus Cloud9 was pretty much. Yeah, I mean Cloud9 won game 1 pretty convincingly. I would say it was game 2 that was very close. Did have. Oh, I think yeah. Oh, that's right. It was the weird Nautilus top for Blippo and the Masu played Neela. They played Neela Rakan bot lane. That was definitely an interesting draft. I liked the cooking from FlyQuest. I do think Inspired kind of threw that last team fight, if I remember correctly, that kind of caused them to lose the game. But to be fair, Mazu was freaking useless. Like that, it's not really his fault. I just think Neela is a completely useless champion, really bad. You have to if you're gonna play Neela, you have to play into like 3 melees, right? Three or 4 melee champions. But no, they have Brand, Corki, and Zeri. Very hard for Neela to play, in my opinion. So I didn't like that. But definitely a fun match. What were your thoughts on FlyQuest vs Cloud9?
So I'll add into that. Fun match. I like that they're trying that because like they knew they were gonna be second place, right? Like it didn't really matter in that sense. But I'll also like want to low light here that what was Whiplet doing? Wasn't this the match he proxied? and like lost like most of his health, and then they tried to do a dive and it like totally screwed up.
Yeah, I think they dove Thanatos and it went really badly or something.
Like he lost like 400 health, freezing, not even freezing, proxying the wave, and I was sitting like, can you do like when he started? I'm like, is that a thing? Because he was up a level.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh okay, they're setting up for the dive, but then he's tanked for so long that it became a terrible dive, and then they still went for it, and I'm like. There are times where you see Whipple go aggressive and he loses, right? And that I'm like, that I can forget. No, that was actually just like, what are you like? Do you even know what you're doing, or do you just play off vibes?
Yeah.
Like, we've always like kind of joked about it and like haha, but seriously, but this was just egregiously bad. I have to call it out and highlight like this just shows that this is a player that he's kind of like, at least in this iteration of him. I'm not saying the old one. But I feel like he's the guy who has a lot of tricks, right? And they work for him. And so he just doesn't really have to think that much harder past that.
He's a one-trick pony. Yeah, he's a little magician. But once you know his trick, not that good anymore.
Yeah, you're just like, is he trolling? Like, that just feels like that's the vibe I get all the time. People just feel like he's trolling.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have a similar take it's like slightly different feeling where it feels like he doesn't know when to stop. Like he doesn't know when his like actual true limit is. Like he knows like what is possible, as in what's like a really crazy play that he can do, but he doesn't know like the limits of what he can actually do. Like his execution doesn't live up to the dream of what he's imagining. You know, like. I do think with like the play you're talking about where he proxied into like killing Thanatos, like that's something where he probably did something like that. He smurfed in scrims and he was like, yeah, this Nautilus champ is broken. You're just so tanky and you can just CC them and then you wave clear and you run away, right? And then he just doesn't execute it on stage and it looks badly and it looks really silly and then he has a pretty poor Nautilus game, honestly. And then I have noticed that this version of Blippo, the most recent one, is more prone to like secretly tilting. I'm sure in comms, or if you ask him directly, he's like, no, I'm fine, I'm not tilted. Like, you know, people die, make mistakes all the time, I can come back. But I have noticed when things start to go bad for Blippo, he just doubles down, right? Like this is so apparent with at MSI with his Urgot games, right? Where he got really, really fed on Urgot against that one series against PSG, and then they won, and then they would go on to play Urgot more often later on, right? They would play Urgot against T1 and play Urgot against PSG again, and he would just still feel like he's playing like he's 12-0 on that one Urgot game. But it's a different game. You're like 2-0, bro. Like you're not 12-0.
That's like the ARAM special where you roll the same character after going like 25-5, and you're like, oh, dude, I'm so ready, and you just run it.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because you just think you're strong, and you just think you can blow people up, and like you disrespect the opponents, and you just die over and over again. And that's how I feel Blippo is, honestly. Like as soon as he tilts, he is playing a game in scrims where he was 25 kills, but he's in a match and he's 0-2, and the opponents aren't trolling. Like they're taking him seriously now. And I felt like that with Blippo, honestly, for most of this split. So yeah, I do want to, let's talk about some other players though. I do think that even though Masu kind of was really useless on the Nila, he has had a really good split. I do think Masu is like up there, one of the best ADCs in the league. Still got to be Yeon for me. I think Yeon is the best, but Masu
between that, but I think Masu's improvement's incredible.
Yeah. Masu, I mean, I think Masu might be like second or third best, right? It's like kind of between him and Berserker. So
yeah, but like Berserker has been kind of like better than Blabber, I think, in his role. But I would say like, what has Berserker done for me recently?
Yeah, Berserker has been consistently good. He just isn't. He's not as like. I think the thing that's deflating about Berserker is he's just not the 1v9 god. Like he was him, right, for years. And then now he's just not him. He's just pretty consistently decent. Like I think he's just pretty good. But he does like Berserker felt unkillable. I think that's the special thing that was about him is like, yeah, like he made a bunch of big plays, but he was unkillable, like unoutplayable. Like you couldn't outplay the guy, right? Like yeah, you could like, okay, if Berserker dies because his whole team is behind and it's just in a team fight and he gets Nautilus ulti and he dies, don't really fault him. Now it feels like Berserker is fallible, right? It's like he could just get randomly hooked and die. or Berserker could just randomly like flash in, miscalculate his positioning or damage and die. Like I don't feel like old Berserker was possible to do that. This version of Berserker can do that, but his baseline is still really high though. I think his baseline is still very consistent. It's just his high highs are like, he's immortal. He's immortal now. He's no longer a god.
Yeah,
it's kind of my take.
Like he got balance patched. He felt
Yeah,
like he released
did.
as a broken character, and now you remember what it was like. Remember when Release Akali was here? Yeah, man, it's pretty wild. Or Zeri's the most direct relationship to.
Yeah, he's released Zeri. He's
literally playing Zeri, and I'm like, oh, I remember what he used to do on this character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then so we'll talk about all pros probably right after this, but I do think Masu is pretty good. I think Quad is really good actually too as well.
Yeah.
I've been impressed by Quad. I like him. I didn't like him for a while, just because I thought, I don't know, he was just a quirky Tristana 2-trick. But then I realized that was going to be the whole meta anyways, so I couldn't really blame him for that. So now he's good on Lucian and Ezreal mid too, and he only plays ADCs mid. I think he's played 4 champions all split, and they're all ADCs or something like that.
So up the player for the meta, so like, why not?
Yeah. So good stuff for that. So yeah, that's pretty much been the top 3 teams. To kind of talk about the rest of the league, because we're gonna get into All Pro and we're gonna get it into playoffs and stuff. Was it Shopify and Immortals are out? They did have some upticks at the end of the split, especially Shopify, right? So Shopify, they got Boogie to come in. They were looking so bad, pretty much the worst team in the LCS history with Tomio, I believe it was the jungler. He was a rookie jungler, so you can't really blame him, right? Rookie jungler on the worst org, on the worst team in the whole league. Kind of rough. But then they brought Boogie back, and they instantly went to looking like a solid team, like a team that could actually do some stuff. But too little, too late. They're out. Immortals, I think they didn't do any roster changes, but they did kind of feel like they were upticking in a way where they could always like look good in a game, but they can never close a game out. Like I feel like this was a year where Immortals on the scoreboard looked like a really bad team, but in game, so many games they were ahead and winning or were very winnable. Mm-hmm. I'm talking like 6 or 7 plus this split. That's a lot of games, but they would just lose because they would throw, they would get caught. Tactical would get caught mid lane or something like that. So those are our 2 teams that are out. Any farewells? Any final thoughts on them before we never talk about them again this year?
I feel like there was we gotta mention the tactical doing the tactical one last time this split. Like I was like, man, there was a while I'm like, he's been playing really well. He's just on a bad team. And I was like, damn it, tactical, you had to do it. Yeah. So that was kind of brought nostalgia now that he's not on my team. But he says I agree with you. The Boogie take is like definitely worth highlighting. The guy probably gets a consideration for like 4th best jungler. Honestly. It's just the run was just too short, and because it was all relative, right? Like there's only so much. I can't put him in all top 3 because actually the junglers were still better. Yeah. But like it's crazy. You were on a team that's on fire. It's not just like you're good enough to level up the team. You have to be good enough, and everyone's mental around you is completely shattered, and you're like on a dog team. Like there's so many aspects, and you're the jungler. Yeah, these are all the worst aspects. Yeah, I mean, unfortunate for them, but they're probably gonna be out of the LCS, and I hope at least some of those players get like academy roles or roles depending on how things shake up.
Yeah, I don't know if Shopify. I think the rumors are that 100 Thieves and IMT are leaving LCS.
Well, that's possible.
Actually. So Shopify would probably be 3rd on the list for me, and then like Shopify Energy are probably like the next up.
Yeah, I did actually. Now I remember. I did say Shopify has the backing and it's just there's so much money, and they actually like this scene, and it's like this is their first foray. Okay, no, you're right. But then I'm not as worried about them. So
hopefully Boogie sticks around, yeah. Fake God had an uptick as well. He did start to play well at the very end of the year.
Actually.
But literally it was bad for Fake God like 95% of the year. Like a whole year he was bad, and then in the last like maybe 3 games. This might be the last 3 games of his career. He played well. So, it's tough for Fake God, man. I was trying to root for him, but I can't even meme him anymore. There's nothing to meme this year.
At that point. fine.
Yeah. Well, also there was no like he wasn't bad in a dramatic fashion, so it's not funny to me. You know, he was just kind of bad for not doing
just
anything.
like mediocre.
He just didn't do anything. He was like, "There's nothing to make fun of here because you're not doing anything." Like at least before, when we were making fun of him, when he was like, I think he was on 100 Thieves, right? Is he would just have these most amazingly terrible misplays that were just
like generational throws, like
yeah.
misplays.
I can
Like I've never seen that before.
I can't not make fun of you. It's too good, bro. You're a content machine. Yeah, but no more.
Now he's like our
He's
Mayo.
boring. Yeah, yeah. Armeo is just sad as well. Like, get this man out of like, put this man in a wheelchair, bro. Like,
let him be a coach or something. I'm sure he's like very good at like something for them to keep
but
picking him.
like he'd be great as like an academy coach, right? He could make a bad academy team the most fundamental jungle best academy team, right? Full clear, very efficient pathing, right? Show up for objectives, follow the plan. Like that's what he's great for. But he's just not LCS caliber.
He's solid, but he's not remarkable. And
It's not. Yeah,
in
it's not.
NA, the junglers, like even the bad junglers, usually have a spark. This guy is the definition of like you would only put him on a team with like monster laners who are doing all the work, and he's just like not taking up resources. He's not in the way.
Yeah, and it's like it's such a stark difference between Boogie, right, and like where Boogie is the guy who literally is gone all split. He comes in for one series, the very first series. He's just a fucking playmaker. He's just making things happen. He's getting picks. He's starting team fights. He's doing the most damage on his team, right? It's just, man, it's just I've never felt like Armeo has ever been in that player since 2018. He started. 2018. He's been playing for 6 years, and I've never felt that way about him. So,
Gotten elite team chances multiple times.
Yep, TSM, Team Liquid. Yep,
the Liquid team, the TSM team. He was like, and like, okay, there were times where I felt like what he was good at was early game pathing in a time where a lot of people were bad. Like this was a time where TSM tried Mike Young. Like that was considered a good early game jungler. So.
That was a disaster. Oh my god.
in the same breath where he gets, okay, this is the eulogy. That's why I'm just saying it because we're giving him more time before his actual like probably retirement.
I think he's done. Yeah.
Yeah. But, like I don't want to wish someone to lose their job. Like I think he has a job just being a part of the support staff, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So I remember famously he would just go up 5-0 on like Elise or Kindred or something, and then. No kills, no assists, no damage, just deaths afterward. And I'm sitting like, how did you do that? You 5-0'd the early game, and then you played, and the other guy out farmed you or like counter. Like, what is going on? And he's always been like this. I have my grievances, but he doesn't seem like a bad guy. Never caused drama. Never heard anything about him being a toxic teammate either. Like, I think that's why he stays around. He's probably quite pleasant to work with on a team, but you just like can't hate him. But you can't win your games, so
Yep. So, gotta go. Possibly eulogy for all of Immortals as a whole. Possibly eulogy for Shopify. I just said Shopify. Oh my god. Yeah, that was a weird one.
That's what you've been up to.
No, that was weird. No, yeah, it's funny on the like nobody says Shopify. Okay, I just said Shopify. That's the first time I ever heard that. That was an accident. But whenever I watch the co-streams or clips, everybody always says Spotify. They always call it Spotify on accident. I think it's so funny.
I think that's fair. They're actually like so crazily close as words, but because I work in e-commerce, Shopify is the term I hear way more because they're like the dominant shopping people.
Dude, I hear Spotify all the time on co-streams, and I see it written in chat. Like, yeah, let's go Spotify. I'm like, oh, whoops. And also, their logo looks the same, right? It's both green, so that confuses me as well.
That's about it. But yes, they are both green.
Yeah.
Actually,
okay.
That part I didn't consider, but it's so ridiculous that I actually think it makes a lot of sense.
No, it makes sense for me, bro.
Mixed up.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. Let's just go straight into All Pro, right? Because then we can talk about the other teams. So actually, no, we're not going to talk about other teams, right? My All Pro is just the top 3 teams, actually. Spoiler alert. So let's just go top lane, right? This one's easy, right? It's just Impact, number 1.
Yep, it's obviously Impact.
Okay, who do you have?
There's no one in his realm. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we don't.
Top lane, not at all.
we don't have to go into it too much. Impact's gonna get plenty of glazing. Trust. Okay, let's who do you have for second place?
I I think it's still it's not very convincing, but I think it's Thanatos.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's
because you
Thanatos.
just heard what I said about Whipple, so I guess I spoiled it. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think it's pretty clear. Thanatos is a clear upgrade to what they had before. He has rough edges, but like it looks like this guy has that spark that you get from the new young Korean imports. I just hope that he's an impact kind of guy instead of a. Not even that it's bad to be berserker. It's just like I hope the trajectory stays consistently good, at least in playoffs.
Yeah, he's a big breath of fresh air compared to Fudge, right? Like, I think a lot of people who are defending Fudge for years and years and be like, it's not his fault, it's the team's fault. Like, no, we bring in Thanatos, and I'm like, yeah, it was his fault.
Yeah,
It was
this is
Fudge's
just
fault.
what this is. Wow, the coaching got so much better this way. I'm like, yes, but also like,
Yeah,
mm.
yeah. Fudge was literally fucking AFK. Yeah, he's my second place as well. Um,
Yeah,
Third place is tough. Third place is tough for me because I think it is Bwipo for me, but
yeah. I mean, we said it's only the top teams, right?
it just
And
doesn't feel right. I feel like there should be somebody else to put above Bwipo. There just
yeah, his
isn't.
name is Licorice, but he just wasn't. This is not their meta, and they don't know how to do a lot of things.
And Licorice really wasn't looking that.
Yeah,
He's not looking that great. He's looking fine, like reasonable, but he's not good enough to put over Bwipo this split.
nondescript, really.
Yeah. I think Sniper also just not good enough to really put over him. He still had a decent amount of solo kills this split, which is a big edge of Sniper over other top laners, right? I don't think any other top laner is playing like Sniper to get solo kills in lane. But lane swaps, kill him. Just 100 Thieves wasn't that good this split. So yeah, I think it is Bwipo. All right, let's move on to jungle. Who is your jungle all pro?
This one is actually tough, and like I'm not saying this to be facetious. Like I thought about it for a while.
Hmm.
I think controversial figuring, as I hinted earlier, I actually think it's still empty.
Hmm.
I think that this guy is like flamed a lot as being the weakest link on Liquid, but Liquid's like a generationally good team in
Hmm.
terms of the balance on the team. And I think Umpty is actually the reason because we watched the Pioshik for a long time. Pioshik's highs are really high. Like he's smurfed on T1.
Hmm.
Umpty's actually, well, while he isn't good at like carry junglers, like he's actually shown a relatively larger pool than we were flaming him for when he was basically a Sejuani Malka. Like he was basically playing tank as a merchant.
Hmm.
He's still kind of doing it, but like pulling out the Ivern, like these guys, you having value on those and being this proficient is a big deal. And his pathing and his game plan. Also, I literally just listened to the APA 2 hour thing about where he was just like, Umpty is like way better than all the other people here. And I am bought in on it. I think that he does a lot that can't be easily quantifiable, but he is very solid, at least domestically. And that's the split I'm weighing him against. Internationally, yeah, there's a lot to be desired, but he still keeps you in the game. He's just, I think there's a certain trauma he has against all these teams that have beaten the shit out of him for years and years. But yeah, I think it's empty.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's empty as well. I don't think our lists are going to be very different or very provocative this time around, just because of how the split went. I think it's
Yeah.
Umti, best, probably the best jungler on the best team in that his style fits perfectly for his team. Like I think if you, like you're saying, if you were to take maybe Umti in a vacuum and compare him to like Inspired or Blabber on this list, he would fall short in a lot of areas. But for what this team needs, he's kind of perfect, right? Yeah, moving down the list, I think we probably have the same. I do have Inspired and then Blabbered. Um,
I think
Blabber,
Inspire is
yeah,
actually still sick, and he was playing carries way better than Blabber was,
yeah.
relatively.
I do think that there's something you can also take away from Inspired is that it seems like he has to play carries on this team. Like he needs to, or like will force himself to. Where definitely you can remember a time when he was on EG with Danny and JoJo, where he would be fine to play tank or supportive junglers because he had reliable carries. And I do think that this FlyQuest roster might be lacking that, where Meech and not Meech, Masu and Quad aren't as reliable, or the meta fits as well to allow Inspired to play carries. But yeah, I just think he fills that role in his team very well. And then we've gone plenty about Blabber why he's third.
Yeah,
So let's move on
and I
to
agree with your
hmm,
Inspired take as well. But
yeah.
that's about it.
No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's move on to mid lane. Who do you have for your mid lane All Pro?
I can't believe this. If you asked me before, I wouldn't have said it. But like last split, early on, I literally said this guy was terrible, but it's APA.
Yeah, yeah. We all knew where
And
that
like
was going. Yeah.
this is only going to be a controversial conversation because of like I think how this flow will go. But I think that APA has been super solid. He fixed his laning phase. He does troll sometimes, but he's always a positive force. He's shown that he can lane, and he's even shown he can do it internationally. So that's not during the split, but technically it was during the time of the split where he went to EWC. But my point is like he's able to lane with all of them. He's beaten all his demons, even the last hurdle, the last boss against Pal Faker at the end. Like no, it was nothing. Like,
Yep.
I think he's incredible. I think that he's proven all the allegations wrong, that he can't play other like you're not a one trick if you're just a threat on everything in a year straight, right? Of meta.
Yep.
So or okay, like 3/4 of a year straight, right? There was definitely a period of time where like,
Yeah.
But, yeah. So I really am happy that an NA talent has shown improvement, gone internationally, and like you can tell he learned. He didn't just get bodied by Chovy and Faker, and it's like, all right, that's his career.
Yeah.
He's
No.
capped. That's it.
Yeah, he's been improving for sure. Big glow up from just literally spring split of earlier this year. Yeah, I think it's APA for me too. Just I also think that his competition is just not very high right now. Is that JoJo? I think is normally going to be on people's minds to be number one, right? He has
Yeah.
been sitting at number one for a while, but just this split was just not as impressive in my opinion. His team was a lot better. His win rate is a lot better this year, this split than last split or the year before. But um, JoJo's individual performance is just not as 1v9. It's just not as crazy. Where APA, he does take games into his own hands. Like his Corki damage is ridiculous, right? This guy was running games on Corki. So yeah, I do think it's APA for me, and then it's JoJo second.
Mm-hmm.
Got to put him there. And then third, yeah, I don't know, man. It is kind of boring. It's literally just TL first All Pro, C9 second All Pro, FlyQuest third All Pro. I do think it's quad. I don't. I think it's hard for me to pick any other, just because the rest of the mid lane pool is just so mediocre, right? Jensen and Palafox are underperforming. They're on mediocre teams, and there's nobody else for me to put. Quid, I think, went from MVP last split to his team is just playing really badly, and he just isn't as impressive looking as Quad, right? I think Quid still looked good, but Quad is just a bit cleaner, less prone to mistakes, and better. And it's because he's on a better team.
They're just like one typo away from each other still.
Quid Quad, yep.
And they just like replace each other there because like Quid had an MVP split. Oh, I will mention since you brought up Quid,
Yeah.
it's also crazy that River is not in the conversation for top 3.
Oh, for jungle, that's right. He did have a really good split, I think. It's just his team was bad.
He did, and like maybe, but like I don't think Blabber was bad. Like they were undefeated. I was just saying that in the metas that they needed him, he did not shine enough to be a top 2.
For what? For what? River?
No, I'm talking about Blabber. I'm just saying that Blabber is better than River this split, but just not enough to be top 2 either. It's like actually odd.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know, but going back to River, yeah, I think he had a really good split, but it's just like the style of the meta doesn't seem to fit 100 Thieves very well, and doesn't seem to fit River's like strengths. Where it seems like he can play the AP junglers pretty well actually, but you don't see that special River sauce that he has on engaged champions, right? Like River on J4 or Vi or something like that was actually like godlike. Like that was like
world class. Like
yeah,
can easily contest with like not easily, but like it's definitely in the same conversation as the top junglers in the world on those characters for sure.
Yeah. Like Golden Guardians taking down BLG, a lot of that was just some insane engages by Blabber, or not by River.
Blabber's so good, he plays for the other team.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that was we did mid lane. We're done with that. We had quad as third. ADCs. All right. So who do we have for ADCs for All Pro?
I'll give my all 3 just because then I won't have to like chime in while you're talking as well. But I think that it's easily Yan. I think Yan is like his glow up has been maybe okay, less crazy because he was solid when he started. He just had such big moments that they're very memorable. But I think he's number one, and I think he's like in the international contention for like top 6 of the international AD carries going to Worlds. He'd probably at least be top 4 to 6.
Yeah.
So I think he's incredible. I think he's way better than Hansama. He's way better than the other people in the league. Then I put Meech, which might be a little bit controversial, but
Meech.
I think sorry, Masu. I keep always getting mixed up no matter what. Yeah. Masu, and then Meech would be really controversial.
Yeah.
Masu and Berserker.
Yeah. Okay. Masu then Berserker. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think. I mean, I think I have the same. So, yeah, Yeon is by far the best
really?
ADC.
I actually thought you would have put Berserker there because of the way we were talking before.
Well, I don't know. Berserker just, I think maybe Berserker probably deserves second, but I just it's like the lack of, it's like the shiny thing that's no longer shiny, but is still really good versus the thing that just became shiny to me recently, right? Like Masu
I agree.
just became shiny to me. It's nice. He's really good. Berserker has looked good for a long time and looks just a little bit worse now. It's hard in my mind to like separate them where it's like objectively, how do you compare them just to split right now? And I'm like, it's so hard to take out all the history behind where Berserker is getting worse year after year, but it's still really good. Yeah.
I'll actually add, I think that Vulcan played fairly well. And so that's where I'm hitting Berserker too. I didn't really mention because I was going to kind of mention the next line, but my argument for it is like if Vulcan's improving like that, and I think he's a better jungle support than Busio. Spoiler alert. Then at that point, how Masu, Masu's improvement is actually way more impressive in that sense. You would think Berserker with a good enough Vulcan should be like a whole head above him, right? In terms of pedigree, in terms of history. But even with his support having a small resurgence, it's like like nondescript, not offensive.
It's the Sven effect, right? Sven autofilled as support was just better. Yeah, autofilled support was just better. I mean, it does feel that way, right? I feel like Berserker with Sven was so much better than Berserker with Vulcan. I don't know why, but it just felt like that.
It sounds weird to say, right? Like we're saying all these things, but like it's the truth, and it's not even like controversial, I think.
No, I think most people would say that this year's Berserker is worse than last year's Berserker, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's our ADC. Let's go to support. You already kind of spoiled it. Yeah. Go ahead. Let it out. Yeah. Who is it gonna be? Oh my god, I wonder.
It's again, this is just like one of those splits where we just have a once in like 4 years strong team, right? So Core JJ is number one.
Yep.
He's might be in the running for MVP. We'll talk about it. But Core JJ, and then it's Vulcan in my mind. Then I don't even. After that, it's like, I guess it's Busio. He wasn't bad, it was good enough to let Masu in the game, but like I really don't feel sparks of like, wow, this is a world-class support from them.
Yeah, I mean, Busio definitely falls into the Bwipo category where there was just nobody else really to put there. So it has to be them, kind of, because they're top 3 and they did actually play decently the split. But yeah, I would say Core JJ is in the running. He's like fully back, right? It's like almost all engaged support, so how could he not be back, right? We were just in a time where Core JJ looked bad for years, and the copium was just, it was, I guess, partially true. He just sucked on range supports for so long. It's just true, man. Like, because now that we're in a fully melee support, he's just the best support in the league, and it's really not that close. There's been so many episodes of pros, so many episodes and interviews where the players are talking about how Core J is on another level of the split because he's on all these melee engaged supports. His roam timings are perfect. Everywhere where you don't want Core JJ to be, he's there, right? I was listening to the dive. They're saying this too, where Core JJ, he's in your kitchen, right? He's in your bathroom. He's in the garage. He's in the parking lot. He's everywhere. Like wherever you go, he's tracking you. So I do think Core JJ is really, really good this split. Hard to really ignore considering Team Liquid went undefeated in series score. So yeah, congrats to him for kind of like bringing back the name, right? So like people have ebbs and flows in their career. like we're talking about Berserker having ebb and flow in his career right now, right? Berserker kind of coming down, right? Berserker even going into next year might look worse, but then Berserker might have a comeback and look really good in 2 years or 3 years. And that's kind of what Cordy J is going through right now, right? He's reaping the rewards of coming back, right? Like he was bad for maybe 2 years. He wasn't bad, but he was like not considered the GOAT, right? He was considered the GOAT from like 2019 to like 2020, 2021. He was considered just like the best player in LCS, definitely the best support. And then he kind of fell off 2022, 2023, 2024 though, he's back and he's reaping the rewards of basically coming from the bottom of the roller coaster up to the top. So a lot of players are going to go through that in their careers. Impact has done it a couple times, right? Doublelift has done it. So yeah, he's on the upswing. So Cordy J's got to capitalize. And then it's our lists were very boring. This is a very predictable split. It's also Vulcan v Zoo for me and the support All Pro. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, while it was very boring, it is the first time ever that we've voted 5 players from the same team as first team All Pro.
Well, that's not true. Team Liquid 2019 summer had all of Team Liquid in first pro.
Really? Well, yep. I don't know if I voted all of Team Liquid actually.
Oh, maybe we didn't, but it was.
They were first All Pro. As the All Pro, yes. Yeah. But for us, because there's like times where we're like, oh, you know, blah or blah is like not necessarily like the best, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I don't think we've ever voted one team as the All Pro. I haven't.
We usually like have a take that at least one of us will be like, "Hey, wait a minute. Like, let's actually consider this," and then we'll make fun of LCK for literally picking every time the top 5 players from the top team, and they're like, "Yeah, I guess this time the Hens is the best support in the world." I'm like, okay. Like, can we like watch the games?
Yeah, but this year it's probably going to be Team Liquid once again taking first All Pro as the entire team. They're really good. I think they deserve it. Once again, Team Liquid did go undefeated in series score. I actually don't like calling it an undefeated split just because they dropped games, right?
Yep, I agree.
That's fine. You can just call it undefeated in series score, but it's just like it's not that it's less impressive or bad. I don't like. There's no. It's just I don't think there's a comparison to doing it in a best of 1 split. It's so much different to go undefeated in a best of 1 split. So I just don't think that they should be comparable, right? Like this should just be a new record, like not like trying to complete a record that's been close to before, like 17-1 by Immortals. Even the 17-1 that TSM did was in best of 3s, and they dropped matches, right? So yeah, I would say that Team Liquid went undefeated in series, and they lost some matches, but that's okay.
And if they did go 2-0-2-0 like 7 times, then like that should be another layer of achievement. It's kind of like winning Worlds is really great, and if you do a Golden Road, then like holy shit, but they're not the same thing. I'm not gonna call it a Golden Road, right? Like so,
exactly.
I totally agree with you. I love Liquid. I think this might be one of our best teams in at least recent history, and if they continue growing, maybe of all time, but. No, it's not undefeated. They didn't go undefeated. Like it's so nonsense. When I heard Gen G, like they're like, "Oh, Gen G almost had an undefeated split." I'm like, undefeated in series. We need to keep, like, especially in LCK, when like T1 went undefeated. I'm like, no, they dropped games all the time, but like, yes, they won every series. It's at least in LCK, you have to do 15 of those or something like that.
Yeah,
that's actually impressive.
I do, yeah. I do think it's also more reasonable to say it in LCK because it's the format they've always done. They've always done best of 3s, and they've always claimed that if you go undefeated in the best of 3s, then
that's true.
You're undefeated. So I think it's just like comparing past to new, like when it comes to records, and then for LCK, yeah, they do double round robin, best of 3s. But yeah, still not undefeated, right? You still lost technically. So it would be right, like as you're saying, there's another record, there's another layer of doing something impressive where you literally don't lose a game, right? Like they could have done that. They could have gone like TL could have gone 14-0 or whatever it is, right? But they did not. That's very hard. That sounds like impossible.
They did it. We should like enshrine it, right, as an achievement. But I agree with you.
Yeah, so I think if TL wins the split, which they seem poised to do, and they have a decent showing at Worlds, I think most people are going to put them in the conversation as the best LCS team to ever exist. I think it's probably likely because the only real competitor in my mind is honestly Team Liquid 2019, and that also had Cordy J and Impact on it. So I don't really like the TSM from 2016. I think a lot of people are going to put that in, but they didn't get out of groups at Worlds. They didn't even go to MSI. So for TSM 2016 is kind of like, eh, eh. The international is an important part, right, for me.
Yeah.
I think C9, if you want to talk about their earlier splits of like 2013 for C9 for like a best LCS team ever, like you could say that just because of how dominant they were during then. Um, so I would be more like I would be more open to hearing that C9 from 2013 is the best LCS team ever than like TSM 2016 or
Agreed.
like yeah.
Or semifinals C9 that year, because the problem is with semifinals C9, a lot of people don't remember is they didn't win the split. They
No,
went
they
to
were
the
bad.
gauntlet.
Yeah,
Like
they were
it was
bad
the
for most of that
typical,
year.
actually, the
Yeah,
usual
yeah,
C9 and gauntlet is invincible sort of thing.
yeah, yeah,
And then I think the other argument might be like 2019 Liquid, right? And it's
yeah,
like, yeah, but I
yeah,
mean, there's just a special thing about this one internationally. That's what I
yeah.
really want to talk to. Even though that one went to MSI finals, I felt that semis was a fluky feeling, even though I was very happy about it against IG. Whereas this team, we keep seeing them tested against like generationally scary teams,
Hmm.
at least, and then we're like, wow, they're good.
Yeah. I think yeah, this Team Liquid roster though, if they wanna just quelch the conversations, make it very easy to say that they're the best, they have to win the split dominantly. And they need to make it out of groups and like have a competitive best of five series and maybe even take a best of five series, right? Like they needed to go C9 2018, make it to semifinals, but they were also dominant throughout the year as well. That's going to cement them as the best LCS team. And honestly, we need it, right? As a region, we are not going to get this many opportunities to send like three LCS teams. In fact, after this year, we will never send three LCS teams ever again to Worlds. Like we need to do something
No,
this year
if we
with it.
win Worlds, I think they can make a case for us
Uh,
getting 3 spots. So
if we get
don't
extra
say never.
spots,
Liquid's
yeah.
kind of good.
Okay, well, yeah, if we get extra spots because we win worlds or something for qualification, that would be obviously the exception. But
Hey,
yeah,
let me. If they hit finals, I think you can make a case. No, no joke though. I don't think it's possible, but if they did hit finals, right?
well, if they hit semifinals, I'm already calling Team Liquid the best LCS team ever. If they hit semis.
Well, I just want the third slot for Worlds next year,
Oh,
though.
okay, okay, yeah. I mean,
Yes,
that would
they
be
are the
crazy.
best team ever if they hit semis in the modern era.
Yeah, yeah. But if they just make it out of groups, right? Which Energy did last year, I don't know if people will call them the best LCS team ever. They probably will be in the conversation, but I don't think it'll be a landslide, right?
Yep.
All right, let's move on. We pretty much covered. We did all the All Pro. Talked about Team Liquid some more wanking them off.
I'm so happy.
Yes, you
It's been
are.
so long since I could just say Liquid and be okay. This last thing, I'm so scared for playoffs.
Yeah,
It's been a while since you see a team where you're like, I can trust them with anything. They can
yeah.
definitely win a best of five.
One best
And
of
then
five, and they're qualified for
AP
Worlds.
said we're not gonna go to lower bracket, and I was like, okay, I
Yeah.
believe you, but like, those are scary words to say in
Yep.
Shrine.
Don't stop clenching. Yeah, so for the viewers to kind of cover, we are talking about this Friday night. Literally tomorrow morning or tomorrow is going to be the beginning of playoffs. So we're going to give our predictions for playoffs, but you're probably not going to see this episode till after the series happens. So Dignitas versus 100 Thieves is happening August 17th. Um, they are our middle of the pack teams. I think they're like what, fourth and fifth place or fifth and sixth, something like that. Who do you have in this series? Didn't get a chance to talk about them much in this podcast. They kind of had some meh, like I think 100 Thieves, they replaced Meech with Tomo, and then Dignitas has been pretty much pretty mediocre, right? I think they lost to Shopify or something, or Immortals or something, and it was really bad.
Yeah, I would say that this is a little controversial, but like I think 100 Thieves should be good, but they're even though we don't even lane slot every game, I feel like in the world of lane slot where it's a thing, it really hurts them and
Yeah.
their ability to play the game. I think in a best of five on stage, the team of veterans that has been really lackluster will still edge it out. It's not going to be satisfying. It's going to be one of those things where you're like, oh, the team that's still young is still bad in playoffs. I don't think they've had enough time, and especially this split hasn't been a confidence builder. So I put a 3-1 dig, and it's going to be ugly.
Yeah, it'll probably be messy. Yeah, this was a tough one for me to predict also because I do think that 100 Thieves was on an uptick with bringing back Tomo. um, or bringing Tomo, but not back, but just bringing Tomo.
Pushing him back, I guess.
Yeah,
backing him into the bench.
because Tomo was on Dig too, which is kind of funny. And now he's on
True. They
100
did a
Thieves.
whole shuffle thing.
They did a whole switch, yeah. But Dignitas just looks so uninspiring. They just don't look good. They win games, but they just don't look good, right? Like so much of 100 or Dignitas's shine is just their personalities out of game, like in interviews and stuff. That's why I like them as a team, right? Um, yeah, I think. Man, I predicted 100 Thieves to do good things at the beginning of this split, and I thought they were going to do good stuff this year too, just because I like their roster. So This is probably a bad prediction. I'm gonna go for a Hail Mary prediction. I think 100 Thieves is gonna win. This is gonna be 3-2. I think it's gonna be a 5 game banger. I think it's gonna be real bloody and ugly and messy, as you were saying. And men will be born on the Rift this in this series.
Men will be born on the Rift.
Yeah.
That is a memorable line you've dropped. That's certainly a line that has been dropped on a podcast before.
Yeah, that's the new tag. That's their tagline. LCS is gonna take it. Yeah, they're gonna take it.
Actually, that's the name of this episode. Men will be born.
Men will be born on the Rift. All right, good stuff. Okay, let's move on to the next series. So we have on Sunday FlyQuest versus Energy. We have not talked about Energy at all, except to flame Palafox very briefly. So, Energy, serious downfall, just a shade of their former self, from beating G2 contracts, having some of the most 1v9 J4 performances I've ever seen, to looking like one of the most just lost looking teams. They look so lost. Yeah, I say against FlyQuest. I don't think they're gonna do.
I think there's just no spark left. Like they burned the monkey's paw. It happened. They did this all, and it was really great. Contracts truly felt like the hope, like not just like I've just never seen a performance like that, right? At least not that I can remember. And it's a 3-0. I'm done. I'm done speaking. I cannot have any more hope for them. And maybe that's what they want. Maybe they've got us right where they want us. But no, absolutely not.
Yep, one way to do that.
Whipple's gonna throw a game and they'll still win somehow.
Yeah, I think it's 3-0 FlyQuest. FlyQuest is actually a real team. They're clean. They have macro. They're not the best in the role for any of their players, but they can function as a team. Yeah, Energy is legitimately dysfunctional, right? So I think it's a 3-0. I think man, it's so hard to even want to believe in CLG that literally it is this is the most amount of power Energy
setup ever.
That's the most amount of power they could ever have, right? This would be their time to shine. This is Bro taking down Genji, KT taking down Genji, right? This is kind of the kind of energy where it's KT just lost a Bro, you know how it's the don't get excited meme? People were really just oh, KT's just bad. Okay. There's just no chance. And then that's when it actually happens. And I feel that's where Energy is now, where I'm I legitimately don't think they're going to take, do they get a second life, right? They do, right? If Energy loses. So I think even if Energy loses, whoever they play down there, I don't even feel like they're gonna win that one. I don't even know. I think Energy is just gone. I think they're toast. I think season is pretty much all finito. Yeah. Anything else we want to say? Nice things about Energy and
I think
FlyQuest.
I think that the Huhi addition to the team just totally failed, and I think that's probably where I put the blame on in my head. Yes, the coaching staff is gone, right? And that is definitely a big deal.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but it's not like the things they taught just disappeared. They didn't just forget how to play the game, right? So in my mind, the thing on the Rift must be a little bit, actually a moderate amount more important. I don't know. Is Ignar even in pro play anymore?
Yeah, he's on GX in EU, Ginex.
He literally tune out every time GX is on.
Yeah. Hey, they're a decent team. They're in the season finals. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. They're also in EU. Yeah. So I only will watch a couple teams. You know, I watch Fnatic out of spite.
Yeah, that's fair. It's fine.
Anyways,
it's cathartic.
Yeah, I think Ignar with this team. Strangely enough, I really thought you could slot out at least one player, and with a really good playmaking support, I thought that would never be a problem. Like especially with the pedigree who he has. Don't think it's a knock against who he really. I just literally think this team has they lost their chemistry.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a big deal for them. I also think that they just don't have that shine that they had, right? They're also desperate to win a title on the old energy, and that no one thought they could do anything internationally, so they beat G2 to coming in with expectations, not even public expectation. I think they have a lot of that DRX idea, right? Where it's like, okay, they won Worlds, but everyone's still calling them shit. I think Energy had that same thing where it's like, okay, you won LCS, you beat G2, okay, everyone still kind of thinks you're shit, but maybe internally they thought they were meant to do so much more, right? And they lost the underdog vibes. Yeah, and then I said it a couple times where Ignar is more of a unique player than we give him credit for, because he's not a player that we get to hear a lot from. He's not a very public personality. We don't really know who Ignar is, even though he's been playing for so long, right? I have no idea what his personality is, besides he plays League, right? So like Ignar is just more valuable than we give him credit for, right? And Giant X is doing well in LEC, actually, considering that they're a pretty middle of the pack team. They're doing surprisingly well with him. So Ignar just brings more to the table than a lot of people expect. And not a knock against Huhi, but it's just not what this team needs. Okay, yeah, so that's pretty much that. Moving forward, though, we can just try and do a podcast next week to talk about the results of this match and the upcoming match, right? Both TL and C9 are in the upper bracket. They win one best of series. They are guaranteed Worlds, which is fantastic because I want both of these teams at Worlds. Obviously, I want them to win to get there to make it so they can prove themselves, but still happy that it's happening. Any final thoughts that we want to wrap up on this podcast?
I would say we got the announcement today that K-Drill is going to be co-streaming.
Oh, yes.
Pretty happy about that.
He hates the LCS. Oh my god. He is an LCS hater.
I hate watch is still a watch, and he has a large audience. We need this. I will briefly commentate that, like, although I don't watch full co-streams anymore, I still watch like the clips and then the reviews of it just to see what other people's takes on pro players are. I think K-Drill's been streaming long enough that he's kind of got into the Twitch streamer like meta mentality. Hope he like goes back to his like roots a little bit more, but otherwise I still think he's a good good co-streamer, and it's still really good, healthy audience, like compared to like Tyler One. At least it's a pretty healthy audience addition for us. Yeah, Tyler One,
Tyler One's also co-streaming.
Oh, I know. Yep. And then the last thing I'll say is the T1 skins. They look sick.
Yeah, they do.
I was like, wow. Actually didn't screw this up. Good.
Yep, T1 skins look good. Did you hear about the Garen and Darius chromas?
No, what?
No? Okay, so they have their skins. It's like I forget what skins it's called. The really nice skins that they have, where like they have like little dogs and stuff. I forget what they're called. So Darius and Garen, they have these really nice skins. They're like legendary skins.
Oh yeah,
God Kings, yeah, God Knight or whatever it is. Yeah.
He said dog, and I was like, I don't know why it made sense to me.
They have it because he has a dog. Yeah, but anyways, they have chromas. They look really cool. They look like skins on their own almost, but they are retextured skins of the God Kings with like a little extra effects and stuff like that. Guess how much they cost? The chromas to an existing skin.
$50.
$50. You are off by about 150. It is $200.
No, it's the Jin skin thing again. They did it for the Jin skin, the chroma a while back. And
I didn't know that. I didn't know they did that for Jin as well. It's all bullshit. I actually play Garen, so I was paying attention, and I was like, $200? What the?
Maybe
what?
You could expense it to Comcast.
It's one chroma to an existing skin. It's not even a full skin, bro. Like that just.
This we talked about the Jin skin. We were like, how the hell are you selling a chroma for a Jin skin for $200? That's ridiculous. And then they did the faker skin, which I guess wiped everyone's memory, and then they put this out again.
No, yeah, they didn't wipe Riot's memory. Riot saw what happened when they put a $500 skin, and they were like, "Oh, that works. Oh, that's actually the most profitable thing we've ever done. Okay, we're making more now." Let's be real, whales are stupid, and they ruin the freaking game.
I buy microtransactions, but whales are like, it's crazy.
I mean, whales, like, in my opinion, you're automatically a whale if you buy a $500 skin. Like, I just immediately like.
Absolutely. If that was the only transaction, which is almost impossible, but if that was the only transaction you've ever done in League, that alone still puts you into whale status. Even though maybe over the course of 10 years, $500 is probably dolphin, right?
Yeah.
Or
dolphin.
Well, no, 50. That's $50 a year. Is probably not that bad in League.
I mean,
I mean, I'm just saying, like, people spend $50 on like FIFA.
Yeah, that's fine.
The
it's like a
game.
That's true.
Sorry, they spent $70 actually.
Now they do, yeah.
Anyways, my point is, yes, I agree with you. You're a whale if you buy that skin.
Yep,
I also will mention that because we weren't here together for that, Swarm came out.
Oh yes,
honestly, really fun.
You've been playing it? It's fun.
It was fun. I didn't get to complete the mode because I had to go to China, but the mode's like really well built. It's just like a fun mini game, and I'm like, I miss these so much. Like just all the friends coming together, solving a mini game together, trying to be degenerates and min max, and lots of bugs and fun stuff. It's just fun. Yep. I think it was a well-made mode, and it ran surprisingly well for how much shit was on the screen. I don't know why ARAM drops frames when Swarm didn't drop that hard for me.
Oh yeah, it is built well. I also think that they need to bring it back with like different, like put more champions in there, and like more, like if they actually do that and they make it work, like it could be a real just perpetual game mode that I think people will always play.
Yeah, you like launch some new bosses, launch some new playstyles. Like it's a very limited roster. You have 160 to work with. Tie it in with Arcane 2, and then give me my raise. Give me my royalties.
Yep, exactly. Boom, podcasted right here. Okay, last things I want to talk about because we just mentioned ARAM and I remembered. You got any ARAM builds? Got any builds in general? We had some new patches. Yeah, let's say
so. It's not a build per se, and this has like been a thing, but because last time we podcasted was before I went to China. Static Shiv, while it has like probably been adjusted since I left, it on characters like especially Sivir, but like on characters like that, really high value. If you don't know, Static Shiv now is when you last hit a minion, it zaps, and when you last hit a champion, it zaps for a lot of damage. Yep. And it's like a very low cooldown if it's a champion. So if you're on Sivir, especially Sivir, I keep saying Sivir, it will just destroy. Like it does it did at launch did 270 damage on a 2-second cooldown if it kill a person or assist a takedown on a person. That's ridiculous. And it's AP damage. So build it on ARAM. It's a no-brainer. It has move speed, attack, and attack speed. Like what do you want, right?
Yeah.
It's a broken item.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And besides that, I was really sad to come back to Warmogs getting nerfed. Not that I have a build, it's just I'm like it was necessary. Even pro players were playing it on support, and that's when it's busted. But I will just say, as a eulogy to Warmogs, me and you have always known that this item is stupid on ARAM. It's still usable for it's unlimited health, but there was so much time where it was like buffed. When they buffed it to like, what was it? So you could just build Warmogs first item basically. And I was looking at it, I'm like, what is this? How is not everyone not rushing this? Why am I still seeing like Fimbulwinter first item unconditionally?
Yeah,
that's my rant. Very short because I haven't been able to play a lot recently, but Static Shiv was surprisingly like I like that change. It's a little bit less brain dead. Like there's a little bit of thought.
Yeah, Warmogs is still really broken as an item. It's really strong. So like Mundo top lane has been pretty popular, and you just go like first item Warmogs, get an extra Ruby Crystal, and you are unkillable. You are a god. I've been seeing a lot, so that's a bit of a small meta. That's for Summoner's Rift though. Talking about ARAM meta, right? All right, so this is one you got to try. You're gonna love this one. I know you're gonna love this one. Okay.
You know I'm gonna love this one. Okay. I'm kind of excited.
I already know you're gonna love this one. I actually did it with the League Dad this morning. I played a couple games before work. He loved it already. Okay. You ready? I'm building it up. It is Senna Enchanter, full Enchanter Senna. So
Okay. Wait. I'm excited. Go
the
ahead.
recent did you see the recent patch to Senna that
Yeah,
they did?
she's now more of a support now than a DPS, like AD carry,
Exactly.
late game scaler, right?
They removed her lethality scaling, they removed some of her damage and her crit scaling, and they gave her AP
Oh,
ratios, and they gave her increased shielding on her ulti and stuff like that, increased root duration in her W. Bunch of great stuff. You go Echoes of Halia, you go Moonstone, and you just heal people for like a bajillion damage. Like, so I have really never gone farther from the build, right? So like I had League Dad build Dawncore, and he was just healing. Like his cooldowns were so low, he's just healing you for like 500 points a Q, just over and over again, auto attacks. But what I have seen people cook is you go like Echoes of Hylia, Moonstone, and then you build stuff like Runon's Hurricane or Navori Quickblade, and you auto attack minions and you auto attack champions, and you just get your Q cooldown over and over again. So you'll heal somebody, you auto attack, you get a Runon's proc or a Navori Quickblade proc, and then your Q's just back up again. You just heal, and each heal you do is like 500 heal or more, right? It's just insane, and yeah, it's gonna get nerfed massively. It's definitely gonna get a huge nerf coming up soon. But right now it is busted. So get your Senna Enchanter stocks in, get those games in. It is so much fun. Um, I've also seen, I've never done it, I haven't gotten this far, but you can just go full AP on Senna. So you go like Echoes of Hylia, Moonstone, Dawncore, Deathcap, just more AP, and your Q is a massive nuke that just heals. I've seen it heal people in a line for like 1500. It's
oh
ridiculous.
wait. What's the order though?
Definitely Echoes into Moonstone. That's very simple. Just go Echoes of
Echoes
Hylia.
first into Moonstone.
Yeah, because you hit people a lot with Echoes, so you get the bonus damage and you get the huge
Right.
healing.
And the heal. Yeah.
Yep, and then Moonstone, and the items are
Moonstone.
really cheap. So what you can do for your runes, right? So there's so many different things you can do runes, right? A lot of people can still go fleet, the normal one. You can go
Yeah.
grasp if you want to go a little tankier. But what I like to do is you go airy, um,
Mhm.
and then you go in your secondary you go cash back, so that
Yeah.
you can get Echoes of Hylia and Moonstone just faster, and
Cashback is broken.
you're just so broken, especially in ARAM. It's even more broken in ARAM, I think.
Mhm.
And then if you want to get spicy, so I've been doing this on supports in general. It's mostly Janna. I've been doing this. I think I told you about this already, but it's you go cashback so you can get these cheap items again. But then you want to build stuff like Locket, right? So you can get resistances, and you go Jack of all
Mhm.
trades.
You haven't told me this.
I haven't
I
told you
mean,
this.
I had similar thoughts on it, but we haven't talked explicitly about this before.
I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, but it's okay. I'll say it again. You go Jack of all trades. Okay, so that way you go your normal enchanter items like Moonstone and Echoes of Helia, but then you oftentimes build a tier, right? So that gives you your mana, and then you can go Locket. That gives you three stats right there, right? It gives you armor, health, HP, and CDR, and so it's only two that you probably don't have, which is armor and health. And then
Yep.
and then your boots, right? You can go Merc Treads for the tenacity, and then you just need like one other random stat. So like on Janna, I've just like I've had 9 unique stats, and I just built a dagger so I can get my 10th one. But it's really insane because you get 10
Oh, I
ability haste.
see.
Yeah,
Right.
you get all your ability haste from Jack of all trades, and then you get 25 adaptive damage. So now all of a sudden you're a Janna who's really tanky and has all these enchanter items, but you deal 25 extra damage on all your abilities. So
Hmm.
it's pretty good. And then I think it works with Senna pretty well too, because you can go Echoes of Hylia, Moonstone. You can still build a Locket, but then you can just go Rapid Fire Cannon. Right now you have AD and crit and attack speed. All of a sudden you're jack of all trades. I think you get like if you get like boots and stuff too. If you get like um like Merc Treads and boots or something, you'll get like 11 or 12 stacks in Jack of all trades. So now you have 25% or 25 bonus damage, and you get like 12 ability haste. Pretty freaking fun. It is so good. So that's the ARAM tip. That's the ARAM knowledge, the ARAM business. Any questions for me? Any ARAM questions you got? Hit
That
me with it.
that that's just like sounds broken.
It is. It's gonna get
I
nerfed.
think I think the only question I have for you
Yep.
unironically, is for you to help me write that down later, so that when I actually get the character, I'll remember it. Because right now it makes sense, but I'll probably get in the game build it wrong, and I hate building the order wrong. So, anyways, thank you for that. That is.
Yeah, let me know if you ever like pull Senna in the ARAM, you ever roll her, just shoot me a quick message, and if I'm on, I'll tell you.
That was genuinely some of the most disgusting theory crafting I've heard in a while. I love it.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's broken. I've already played it a bunch. Yeah, yeah, definitely try that. And then in general, right? Just in general on ARAM traps, just go cashback Jack of all trades and see what kind of weird builds you can make work. Right? I've been doing like hybrid tank echo, which has always been a thing. But like you go Nashers and then you build like some defensive items, right? And then but you still need like some extra oomph to like get all your Jack of all trades, right? So you can build enchanter items because you have a shield and you have a heal. Your enchanter items will get buffed by that, right? And then also you can build Sundered Sky because you have an auto attack, right? Sundered Sky is just a naturally broken item on any champion. You just build it on Echo.
A character who can reach all the enemy team from relatively safe distances in your queue.
Yep. So I've been also doing this on Silas as well, right? Silas, if you want to go Jack of all trades, cashback, you just build a random Sundered Sky in there. Just throw in a Dawn Core in there, increase your healing and shielding, and then all of a sudden you're just an unkillable one.
I'll be able to tell how good it actually is because it sounds hilarious, but
it's
like,
so silly. It is. I think it's pretty good. On average, it's never going to be optimal, right? It's never going to be giga optimal. You're building Sundered Sky on Silas, okay? It's never going to be optimal.
It will look funny.
It'll look funny, and it'll be too good for how funny it looks. Yes, that's
like they'll look at it and like, wait, how is he winning?
Yeah, this guy's trolling, right? Wait, why is he nuking me, actually?
But I kind of just like it conceptually, even if it can't work.
Yeah, cashback.
It can't work. It's not, even if it's not perfect. It's funny.
Cashback, Jack of all trades. It's honestly these. I'm so glad they made these. Like these, I think changes to the year. So many changes happened this year, right? Changes to the map, changes to the items. These two changes in the inspiration tree, right, to Jack of all trades and cashback went very under the radar, but they are so fun to play with now that we're almost. It's already August, right? So, yeah.
I think it was really clever what they did with it, and there wasn't a lot of fanfare. Like, I still don't hear conversation about it even to this day. Like, I feel like maybe it's because we're ARAM players, so we explore this stuff anyways. But like, I feel like on the Rift, at least, it's not talked about enough.
No,
and maybe it's just because it's not very Rift friendly to be like, basically, you don't have a rune until you finish your first item, but.
Shit's broken though, dude. Shit gives you so much money. Like you get like free boots.
I feel like it's like when Klepto came out, there was like a period of time people weren't sure how to use it.
Yeah.
And so like there's just like it's just broken. I like look at cashback and I'm like, this shit just pays like it's already decent by the time like the first item you complete, and then everything after that is just disgusting.
It's just gravy. Yeah, it's just extra gravy on top. Like you buy a 3,000 gold item, you get 200 gold back. Like almost, right? It's insane. It's like 180 or something like that you get back. This is a lot of money. It's like a lot of money. Yeah. So that's good stuff. All right, that's gonna do it for us on this podcast, though. It was a long one, hour and 40, but it makes sense. It's been so long since we've done one. But yeah,
a double whammy podcast.
Yep. Double whammy. And then we're going to hit you next week. Alistair might be coming back. Spoilers, I don't know. We'll see if he can actually make it, but that could be fun. And then we'll talk about the continuing playoffs journey. Yeah. All right. Well,
sounds like a plan.
Try not to be too toxic, and we'll see you on the next episode, guys. Peace.